We are the product of an intelligent form of life. Point, the timing, the precision, the accuracy of our genetic mutations, and the technology required to yield such mutations implies forethought and intention. These were chromosomes 2A and 2B, were merged or fused into the single larger chromosome that is now our human chromosome 2. It's the key that gives us our humanness. We have been wired for these extraordinary abilities. This design affords us extraordinary ways of living and extraordinary lives. The most important decisions we'll ever make in our life are based upon the way we answer this single, timeless question: who are we? Since our earliest ancestors looked with awe into the distant stars of a moonless night sky, a single question has been asked countless times by countless numbers of people, sharing the same experience throughout the ages. The question they've asked speaks directly to the very core of every challenge that will ever test us in life, no matter how big or how small. It's at the heart of every choice we'll ever face, and it forms the foundation for every decision we'll ever make. The question that's at the root of all questions, the one that's been asked countless times by countless humans during the estimated 200,000 years or so that we've been on this earth, is simply this: who are we? In what may be the greatest irony of our lives, following 5,000 years of recorded history and technological achievements that stagger the imagination, we still have not answered this most basic question of our existence with certainty. Our origin, why it matters. The way we answer the question of how we've come to be as we are penetrates to the essence of every moment of our lives. It forms the perceptual eyes, the filters through which we see other people, the world around us, and most importantly, the way we see ourselves. Recent discoveries confirm that when we approach life knowing that our bodies are designed to repair and rejuvenate and heal, that this shift in perspective creates the chemistry in our cells that does just that. It mirrors our belief. Our self-esteem, our self-worth, our sense of confidence, our well-being, and our safety each stem directly from the way we think of ourselves in the world. From who we say yes to when it comes to choosing a life partner and how long our relationships last once we create them, to what jobs we feel worthy of, the most important decisions we'll ever make in our life are based upon the way we answer this single, timeless question: who are we? Harold Urey, a 20th century Nobel Prize-winning chemist, said, and this is a quote, "All of us who study the origin of life find that the more we look into it, the more we feel that it is too complex to have evolved anywhere," end of quote. On Saturday, February 28, 1953, two men walked into the Eagle Pub in Cambridgeshire, England, and they announced a discovery that would forever change the world and the way we think of ourselves. At noon that day, Cambridge University scientists James Watson and Francis Crick announced to their colleagues who were having lunch at the pub, quote, "We have just discovered the secret of life," end of quote. Watson and Crick had just made their breakthrough discovery of the double helix pattern of the DNA molecule, nature's code for life. Well, DNA is held within each cell of our body in thread-like structures that are called chromosomes. As humans, we have 23 pairs of these chromosomes in our cells. Each chromosome, in turn, is made of smaller, more precise regions of the DNA that are called genes. It's the codes contained within the genes and the chromosomes that determine everything about the function of our bodies, from the regulation of hormones and our blood chemistry, and how fast and to what size our bones grow, the size of our brains, the kind of eyes we have, and how long we live, to automatic functions such as breathing and digestion, metabolism, body temperature, and so much more. So with the discovery of this magnitude, it would seem that the greatest mysteries of our existence would be solved. And many have been. However, it's because of the deeper insights that the DNA discoveries have made possible, everything the genetic code is revealed, that scientists now face a quandary when it comes to interpreting where the new information fits into the accepted human story. In 1987, a paradigm-shattering discovery was made in the Caucasus region of Russia, near the border between Europe and Asia. Buried deep in the earth, in a place called Mezmaiskaya Cave, scientists discovered the remains of a Neanderthal infant, baby girl, that lived about 30,000 years ago. So for reference, the last ice age ended about 20,000 years ago, meaning that this baby was alive during the Ice Age. William Goodwin, PhD from the University of Glasgow in Scotland, commented on the exceptional discovery, saying, quote, "It is something of a mystery how this child's remains were so perfectly preserved. This landmark discovery was the turning point when it comes to answering the question of where we humans fit on the evolutionary family tree." Using forensic techniques, scientists were able to extract the mitochondrial DNA from one of the baby's ribs for analysis. And the reason that mitochondrial DNA is key when it comes to the question of human evolution is because we inherit it only from our mothers. It's the uniqueness of this form of DNA that set the stage for the bombshell revealed by the Neanderthal baby girl. Using the most advanced techniques with results that are accepted in the highest courts of law, Russian and Swedish scientists tested the Neanderthal infant's DNA to see how similar hers was to that of modern-day humans. In other words, the scientists wanted to know if the Neanderthal girl was actually one of our ancestors, as the evolutionary family tree leads us to believe. The results of the first studies were published in obscure scientific journals and reported, quote, "The Neanderthal mtDNA sequences were substantially different from human mtDNA," end of quote. And although this single statement sounds relatively benign, it's the equivalent of an earthquake with the epicenter right at the core of the human evolutionary tree. The researchers at the University of Glasgow Human Identification Center published the results of their own investigation, comparing Neanderthal DNA to that of modern humans. The results of their study were shared in a way that made sense to even the most non-scientific reader, and the meaning of what they found could not be dismissed. The conclusion of their report was shared in the peer-reviewed journal titled Nature, and directly stated that modern humans, quote, "were not, in fact, descended from Neanderthals," end of quote. So if we're not descendants of Neanderthals, then who were our ancestors? Who are we? Where do we fit on the tree of evolution, or do we even belong in Darwin's evolutionary family? When I was in school, back in the 1960s and early 1970s, learning about Neanderthals and other pre-human beings, such as Australopithecus, the famous Lucy, and Homo habilis, the famous handyman, we were taught that there was another member of the evolutionary family tree who was a close ancestor as well. In those days, the name used for these distant relatives was the name Cro-Magnon. Paleoanthropologists have replaced this term with another word that makes more sense, and the reason will be self-explanatory. The new name used to identify the former Cro-Magnons is anatomically modern humans, abbreviated simply as AMH. Scientists generally agree that AMHs first appear in the fossil record about 200,000 years ago, and they mark the beginning of the subspecies Homo sapiens sapien. So although anatomically modern humans appeared on Earth 200,000 years ago, the oldest DNA discovered from them so far is from a man who lived in Siberia about 45,000 years ago. An anatomically modern human. Further advances in genetic technology allowed for the comparison of anatomically modern human bodies to those of 4 newly discovered Neanderthal bodies. A team of European scientists compared the DNA from the 2 anatomically modern humans, one that was 23,000 years old and the other that was 25,000 years old, with the DNA from the remains of Neanderthals who were variously dated as living between 29 and 42,000 years ago. An article on the findings, published in National Geographic News, states, quote, "Our results add to the evidence collected previously in different fields, making the hypothesis of a, quote, Neanderthal heritage, unquote, very unlikely," and that is the end of the quote. So once again, the Neanderthals, often portrayed as primitive cavemen in movies and cartoons, were eliminated as possible ancestors for us, for modern humans. So now that we know who our ancestors were not, the focus of paleoanthropology is shifted to discovering who we are. The DNA studies have narrowed the broad field down to one particular candidate, and it's not the candidate supporters of Darwin's theory expected. Scientists now believe that the anatomically modern humans, the AMHs, are us, and we are they. Any differences between contemporary bodies and those of the anatomically modern humans of the past are so slight that they don't justify a separate grouping. In other words, although ancient humans didn't necessarily behave like we do, they looked like us, they functioned like us, and they appear to have had all of the wiring in their nervous system that we have today. So stated another way, we still look and function as they did over 2,000 centuries ago, despite our incredible technological achievements. So it's the fact that members of our species, the Homo sapiens, have not changed since the date when our earliest ancestors first appear in the fossil record that poses a problem for the traditional story of evolution. The set of all human DNA, the human genome, was the first DNA sequence of any vertebrate to be entirely mapped. The international effort that made this mapping possible was called the Human Genome Project, or HGP, and it was the result of the largest cooperative biology project in the history of humankind. Well, after the success of the Human Genome Project, the same techniques used to map human DNA were then applied to other living things. Well, the results were nothing short of mind-boggling. Genetic mapping revealed that there is only a 1.5% difference that separates us from chimpanzee. We share 60% of the same DNA with a fruit fly, 80% of the same DNA with a cow, and 90% of our DNA is the same as that of a common house cat. So the big question that comes with these kinds of revelations is simply this: if we have so much in common with other creatures genetically, then why are we so very different from them? The answer to this question goes back to an unexpected discovery made during the Human Genome Project. And the discovery is this: that a single gene can be activated in different ways and to do different things to different degrees. And what this tells us is that it's not so much about what or how many genes we have in common with the chimps or the cows or the flies. It's more about how those genes are activated, or more precisely, how they are expressed. The FOXP2 gene, for example, now understood to be directly linked to our ability to form complex speech and language. FOXP2 is shorthand for the word fork-head box protein P2, a protein that's involved in the human ability for language. Located on chromosome number 7, the FOXP2 protein is coded from a gene that has the same name, FOXP2, and is present in both humans and chimpanzees. And this fact tells us that there is something more than the gene itself that's involved here. There's something in the way the gene expresses itself that gives us the ability to consistently create the sounds of language and communication. Scientists knew from earlier research that humans and chimpanzees both possess this FOXP2 gene. They also knew that the human version of the gene changed or mutated at some point in the past, and that change happened really fast. It didn't happen slowly and gradually as the theory of evolution would suggest. the mutation happened, quote, rapidly around the same time that language emerged in humans, end of quote. Well, this is a pivotal discovery because for the first time, the specific mutation in FOXP2 was scientifically linked to our capacity to create language. Additional studies took this research even further and determined when this particular change happened. According to Wolfgang Inard of the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, the mutations in FOXP2 that make our complex language possible, quote, happened in the same time frame when modern humans evolved, end of quote. A BBC News World Edition report clarifies this relationship, and it states that our capacity for language happened when, quote, the changes to 2 single letters of the DNA code arose in the last 200,000 years of human evolution, end of quote. So the speed and the precision of the mutations in FOXP2 occurring in just the right 2 places in the DNA code are further examples of the kind of change that simply does not fit into the theory of evolution. The best science of the modern world has now given us the answer. The question now is, are we willing to accept what this DNA is telling us? Because humans are classified as the most complex and advanced member of the primate family, it was reasonable for scientists to expect that we would have more chromosomes than our less complex relatives. This is where an unexpected twist to our DNA story begins. Our nearest primate relative, as we mentioned previously, the chimpanzees, they have more chromosomes than we do, with a total of 48 in their overall genome. Ironically, humans have only 46. In other words, it looks like we're missing 2 chromosomes when we're compared to chimps. Mystery of where those chromosomes went appears to have been solved, but in doing so, however, once again we find ourselves at the threshold of an even deeper mystery that holds even more startling implications. A closer look at our genetic map shows that what has been thought to be our missing DNA in the past isn't really missing at all. It's been with us all along, only it's been modified and rearranged in a way that wasn't obvious in the past. The second largest chromosome in the human body, forming 8% of the total DNA in our cells, human chromosome number 2, actually contains the smaller, missing chromosomes found in the chimp genome. In other words, at some point in the past, for reasons that remain controversial, 2 separate chimp chromosomes were combined into a single, larger chromosome that now is our chromosome number 2. While scientists acknowledge that the mutations definitely occurred in FOXP2 and that they happened within the time frame that correlates with the rise of the anatomically modern humans, they can't really tell us what caused that change to happen. New technology has revealed precisely what happened to create human chromosome number 2. So I'll share the discovery in 2 ways with you. First, in the scientists' own technical language, from the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, to reveal the details of the discovery itself. And then I'll describe it again with a simpler description in lay language to illustrate why this discovery is so important and what it means in our discussion. And this is a quote from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. We conclude that the locus cloned in cosmids C8.1 and C29b is the relic of an ancient telomere-to-telomere fusion and marks the point at which 2 ancestral ape chromosomes fused to give rise to chromosome number 2. I know that's a technical description, and I wanted you to hear it in the researcher's own words. The simplified explanation: it appears that long ago, 2 separate chromosomes from chimpanzees, and these were chromosomes 2A and 2B, were merged or fused into the single larger chromosome that is now our human chromosome 2. It's the key that gives us our humanness. Many of the characteristics that make us uniquely human come from this fusion. I want to be absolutely clear that what I say next is not the conclusion of peer-reviewed science, although I've spoken with mainstream scientists who have told me that they suspect what I'll share is true, yet they are reluctant to speak publicly about their suspicions in fear of losing their reputation, their credibility, or even their jobs. When I honestly consider the evidence that I've shared, it simply makes sense to look beyond evolution and an unbelievably good run of biological luck to explain the fact that we exist as we do. The evidence overwhelmingly suggests that, number one, we are the result of an intentional act of some kind. Point, the mutations in FOXP2 and human chromosome 2 are precise. Point, the mutations in FOXP2 and human chromosome 2 appear to have happened quickly. Point, the optimization of human chromosome 2 that occurred after the fusion happened appears to be intentional. Point, the fact that after 150 years of searching, no physical evidence has been discovered that links us to other forms of life on the tree of primate evolution suggests that we may be a species unto ourselves with no evolutionary history. Number two, we are the product of an intelligent form of life. Point, the timing, the precision, the accuracy of our genetic mutations, and the technology required to yield such mutations implies forethought and intention of an advanced intelligence. Point, the intelligence that carried out genetic modifications, giving us our humanness, had the advanced technology to do so 200,000 years ago in a way that we are only learning to do today. For example, DNA fusion and gene splicing. To honestly acknowledge these possibilities opens us to a paradigm that shifts the way we feel about ourselves and the way we view our place in the universe. And with this shift, we free ourselves from a lonely paradigm of insignificance to one of a rare and unique heritage that we're only beginning to explore. We're here with the bodies and the nervous systems that afford us the extraordinary abilities of compassion, empathy, sympathy, intuition, self-healing, and much more. The fact of their presence within us suggests that we're intended to utilize and master these sensitivities that we've arrived with. From the time of our origin, we have been wired for these extraordinary abilities. This design affords us extraordinary ways of living and extraordinary lives. The question that immediately comes to mind when we consider that we've had such advanced characteristics from the time of our beginning is simply this: how do we fully awaken these capabilities in our lives today? What do they mean to us? I invite you to share a journey of discovery in which we will do our very best to answer not only this question, but to explore the deepest truths of our new human story.